Okay, so today I'm gonna make for you pork masala. This is a classic Italian dish. Classically it's made with veal, but today I'm gonna make it with pork. Very often you'll also see it made with chicken, but I found some nice looking boneless pork chops, so we're gonna use pork in this recipe today. Here's my pork chops. I'm going to show you the ingredients first. I have a little bit of flour to dredge them in. Here I have my shallots, mushrooms, a little bit of flour to make a roux, Marsala wine, chicken stock, cream or half and half, of course butter, freshly ground pepper and kosher salt, olive oil, and I have some thyme and rosemary over here. So first things first, I'm heating up my pan and you can see it's smoking, so we know it's hot and it's ready to go. We're gonna season our meat first, and I pulled the meat out about 25 to 30 minutes early just to get it up to room temperature. I got kosher salt on there. Here's a little bit of freshly ground pepper, putting that on there. And then we're gonna just dredge them in the flour. We're gonna flip them and do the other side as well. Just flip them over. Kosher salt. Both sides. Season well. And of course your freshly ground peppercorn on there as well. There you go. And then we come over here and we just dredge it in the flour just like so. And meanwhile, while we're dredging and doing that, we're gonna put about 2 tablespoons of butter in our pan. And also, I'm just gonna melt that down. We're gonna put a little bit of olive oil in there as well. Maybe a tablespoon of olive oil in there too. And we're just gonna melt that all down together. Let it go in the pan over here. Olive oil and butter. And then we'll do our next chop. Just right down in the flour like that, like that. Shake off the excess. Okay. Same thing with these others. I got 4 of them here, so shake off the excess. Flour. Perfect. All right, now we're just waiting for our butter to finish melting over here in our pan. Take a second or two. Looking pretty good. All right, so then we're gonna lay these down in. We've got 4 of them. Hopefully they'll fit in here. They're pretty big, but for this recipe, you don't want them more than like a ½ inch thick. You don't want the extra thick chops. I might only get 3 of them in this pan. I think I'm just gonna go with 3 comfortably, and I can cook the other one off, at another time. And we got this on a medium to high flame. So I'm gonna say like 4 minutes on each side. And I also made some homemade noodles to go with this, kind of country style noodles, and I went ahead and I just buttered them and I cooked them up ahead, but that's going to be part of our side dish. And I'm also going to have as a side dish some peas with pancetta. So here's the noodles. Those are all set, homemade. Just put butter on them. That's all I did. Just made some homemade noodles, which is a process. I could show you, but it's a long video to show you how to make homemade noodles, but well worth doing because the flavor is awesome. And these are starting to bubble up pretty nicely, but we got to give them enough time to cook. And that's what's nice about adding a little bit of olive oil to the butter. Butter and olive oil, their cooking temperatures before they start to burn are pretty low. Like Crisco, something like that, you can really cook at a super high temp and it's not going to burn. But butter and olive oil have a lower threshold before they're not going to taste good. So I usually combine them, and that extends the cooking temp a little bit. So you can cook it at a little bit higher of a temp. With those fresh peas, I'm just going to saute that pancetta, add the peas, and then maybe top it with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. But we won't do that yet. We'll wait until these are pretty close. And here's the pancetta cooking over here for my peas and my Parmesan cheese. Just gotta be patient and let those go. Got about 2 more minutes on this side, and then we'll flip them. And we don't want to have them fully cooked because we are going to, after we, cook them like approximately 4 minutes on each side, we're going to take them out of the pan. And then we're going to create our fantastic Marsala sauce. And so we will add the chops back into the sauce after the sauce is finished. So we don't want to cook them all the way because we don't want them to be dried out. So we're going to undercook them, slightly undercook them. But they will finish cooking in the sauce. I usually cook them until they're almost done, almost like 2 minutes away from being done. And that way we just add them to the sauce, basically to heat them back through to mingle them with the sauce. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit brown, so we'll turn them. Turn this one. We got a little crust on the outside, that's all we want, a little bit of color, perfect. And we'll let these go another 4 minutes on this side. And we'll stir our pancetta around. Oh, the pancetta's looking fabulous. See how crisp it's looking? It's looking really good. Quite a bit of oil down in there. You could drain off some of that oil if you wanted. Depends on how many peas you're, having in there. Because the peas will absorb some of that, but you could drain some of that off, and I may do that just to make it a little healthier. As promised, my Friday night meal. I usually cook every Friday night. It's my day off, and it's something I just love to do, so I like to make a really nice meal on Friday nights. I'm rushed during the week. I don't really cook a lot during the week, but when I have Friday off, it's kind of a celebration. And so I like to cook something real nice. I almost didn't cook this weekend. I got invited out. We have, here in Michigan, in Grand Rapids, we have Fiddler on the Roof is here this weekend, so I was invited out for that, but I decided to tuck in and stay in tonight. It's cold and it's rainy, and I just kind of wanted to stay in. If I'd have gone out, I probably wouldn't have cooked tonight. I might have cooked tomorrow night, Saturday night instead. About 2 more minutes on this side. And I have covered my homemade noodles here. They're kind of thick and chunky, but they're excellent just to keep them warm. I did them up ahead of time. I mean, you could certainly use, I was tempted to make some spetzel. Spetzel would be really good with this too. And I was also tempted to make my apple raisin pork chops, just because, you know, it's fall here in Michigan. It's starting to get cold, and that's kind of a cold weather thing. This is as well. The way I make it, classically, you wouldn't add the cream or half and half to this recipe. It's quite a bit lighter when you're making it in a restaurant, but with the cold weather coming on here, I thought I'm going to add a little cream to this and just put a little heaviness to it. A little bit of stick to your ribs. Keep us warm when it's cold. Bubbling along real nice. These are quite juicy. About another minute, and then we're going to take them off. And then we're just going to set them to the side while we do our sauce. Again, we don't want to cook them all the way through. We want them slightly underdone. Okay, and I think that's probably good. But, yeah, looks perfect. Let's flip them over and show you. Looking pretty awesome. And again, we have our flame's on about medium. So, you want to keep it on medium. We'll remove these. We'll just take them off to the side here while we make our sauce. This is our Marsala sauce. It's fantastic with these tops. Really, really good. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our shallots. And I have like one big shallot here. If you have small ones, use 2. Just put those in there. Spin them around, saute them around a little bit. Pan's quite hot, so make sure you keep them moving so they don't burn. Any little bits of the meat and the fat on the bottom, scrape it up. You can smell this, the aroma is real strong. Now it's good. Spin it around. Let that cook like maybe a minute. And then we'll add our mushrooms. That looks pretty good. And goes our mushrooms. These are cremini mushrooms. I mean, you can use whatever kind of mushrooms you want. You like portas, baby bells, whatever you like. Put it in there. Whatever kind of mushrooms. So we got our mushrooms in there. Our shallots. This is about, it's like an 8 ounce, 10 ounces of mushrooms. 1 or 2 cloves of shallots, depending on, you know, the size of it. Good, and we'll just cook that down, let that kind of go for a minute. Take about 5 minutes to cook those mushrooms down. We can add, at this point, we can add a pinch of kosher salt and some freshly ground peppercorns, which I have over here. Here's my kosher salt. You know, just sprinkle like a pinch in. Here's the peppercorns. Just a little bit of freshly ground peppercorn in there. And just kind of let these go down 4 or 5 minutes or so. Cook them down so they're nice and juicy, aromatic. Really smells good in here. Looking really good, juicy. The mushrooms give off a lot of liquid, so make sure you cook those down nicely. Lots of flavor there, a lot of layering of flavors. You got the juices from the chops in there, you got the shallots. You have the mushrooms and all the juiciness from that. Fantastic. Really. Oh, makes the whole house smell really good. Okay, so those have cooked down a little bit. At this point, we're going to make a roux. So we need to add some flour. There's still quite a bit of juice in the olive oil and a little bit of the butter in there. So when we add our, I think about 2 tablespoons of flour in here, we're going to cook it for a couple minutes, kind of make like a roux, a light roux, not a heavy roux, but a light colored roux. This is a little bit lighter of a sauce than some things. So see the flour's in there, and it's tightening up. You see how it's tightening? Everything's kind of grabbing together, but we still want to keep it moving because you want to cook the flour. You don't want your sauce to taste floury, so just continue to move everything around the pan, and I'd say maybe a minute or two. It doesn't take long. There's a lot of juice in there, and the flour will cook. We want our sauce to be smooth, rich, lots of depth of flavor, and we don't want that floury taste. So make sure when you add this flour, you cook it for a couple minutes, at least a minute and a half, to cook out that kind of like doughy taste. And I'd say that's looking pretty good. And you see how your pan's dry? Your pan's real dry, so that means you're cooking everything in there. And at this point, I would add my Marsala wine right here. You got your Marsala wine. Just add that in. Another perfume for the kitchen. It smells great. And we're just gonna mix that around. Oh, wow. The aroma is very intense. It's lovely. And just let that bubble for a second or two. About a minute. You want to cook that about a minute. This also helps cook that floury taste out. We need the flour to kind of thicken this, but we don't want a floury flavor. We want a nice, smooth, rich, really rich tasting sauce, which I think we're gonna have. Gosh, it smells like out of this world. It smells fantastic. Okay, so that's been about a couple minutes. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna add our chicken stock. We have some chicken stock, about a half cup of chicken stock over here. We're gonna add that right in. Perfect. Just add that chicken stock. And it gives us a little bit of a looser, we don't want it like gravy, we want a little bit looser of a consistency. So, adding that chicken stock, and then we're gonna top it, finish it with the cream, which will also loosen it back down, because you don't want it real thick like a gravy. You want it a little lighter than that. So we'll just let that bubble for a couple minutes as well. Okay, just let that bubble for a couple minutes. Then we're going to turn it down to the lowest setting. The very lowest, but we do have to bubble for a couple seconds there. See it bubbling? It's perfect. It's bubbling away just like we want. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. If you could only smell this, you'd be so impressed. It smells really, really good. Okay, we're gonna add our herbs. I have rosemary and thyme here. And I've got probably like a tablespoon of thyme and maybe a teaspoon of rosemary. Rosemary is a much stronger herb, but an excellent herb. It's an excellent flavor, but you really have to be careful with it because it can overpower the other flavors in your dish. So this is why I turned it down to a teaspoon and a tablespoon of thyme. So I'm going to add that in. See, there you go. And we're gonna just spin that around a little bit and let that incorporate. Give that a couple minutes to incorporate. It looks pretty too. Gives it a nice look, great flavor. Meanwhile, over here, this pancetta looks pretty done to me. So we're gonna add our peas. And just put them right down in there like so. And we'll just toss them around a little bit. These don't take long. Nearly done here. You can also put some, if you can find them. I didn't see any. I looked for them, but I like peas with the little pearl onions, but we didn't have any at the market, so I skipped on it. And I figure we have shallots in the Marsala, so there's a little bit of onion flavor. So this is going to be real simple. It's just pancetta, peas, and then we'll top with a little Parmesan at the very last second. Okay, back over here to our sauce. Look at that. That is money. If that isn't money, I don't know what is. Okay, maybe it's heaven then. If it's not money, it's heaven. So we're going to add our heavy cream. Or half and half, whatever you have. And it's about 1/3 of a cup. Just put that right down in there. And this isn't traditional. In a traditional Marsala, you would never put this heavy cream in, but it's so cold. I just wanted something a little heavy, so I'm going to put that right in like that. I think that looks beautiful. And then we're going to add our chops back in. So you just add the chops back into the pan. Kind of coat the top a little bit. Perfect. Just add the chops back in. These are, again, boneless chops. 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick. You don't want them too thick. You want the kind that cook quickly. And you want to undercook them when you put them in here, because they're going to cook for another couple minutes in here while we're finishing up our peas and pancetta and all that. So you just do like that. Let them simmer for a couple minutes, not too long. Also, if there's any juice from the pan or the plate or whatever you remove them to, make sure to add that back into the sauce. Any juice that comes off of the chops, you want to add that back into your sauce, which is what I'm going to do right here. A little bit of the juice from the chops when I took them out to rest. And you can see it's bubbling away beautifully. And this is like 2 minutes from being done. Just 2 minutes. Bubble away. And our peas are done over here. We're just going to add a little bit of Parmesan to it. And our homemade noodles. rustic style, but it's hearty on a cold day, on a cold fall day in Michigan. It's beautiful. And these are pretty much done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it off and let this rest. You gotta let it rest. Always let your meat rest a few minutes. Everything really. Vegetables, meat, pasta, anything you're cooking, give it a minute to rest. Let the flavors mingle, marry, and then you can plate. And so I'm going to start over here with my peas, like so. Got my peas and my pancetta. I have some shaved parm here. I'll put a little bit of shaved parm on top, just a little bit. My homemade rustic style noodles. I know a lot of people don't like them this thick, but when it's cold, I like thick noodles. So there you go. And all I did was butter them. They're homemade noodles. They're a little chunky. I know, a little unorthodox, but they're fantastic. And then we're gonna come over here with this messy stove. And we're gonna grab one of our chops right here and put that on. And I need a little spoon to spoon sauce over the top. So we want some of those mushrooms and all that. There you go. You could even put some of this over the noodles if you like. Just like so. Bon appetit, enjoy.